So, right, get that introduction out of the way. Let's have a look at the charts because this is exciting.
Okay, so we're going to just take a quick look at the charts and then just go through some of the news and try and make sense of what's going on. I mean, I think that's probably our best bet. Okay, this is the first time I'm doing this, so just bear with me. Okay, so let's kick it off with what I think is probably leading the charge here, in my opinion, is that you got the Dixies showing a lot of strength. Kind of kicked it off Tuesday, Wednesday, almost like it was total risk off, and showing tremendous strength. I mean, that's the only thing that I can see from the TradFi that might be contributing to Bitcoin's weakness at the moment. Obviously there's the whole narrative around the whales playing their games, which they always do, but it just seems like the range is definitely being set for Bitcoin at the moment. We really are in a situation where, let me just find this BTC USD chart. Okay.
Yeah, and this is also one of those great times where you take your eyes off the charts for a few minutes, or you don't, or you listen to too much noise, and then it can really bite you. Because when you do, I was looking at this morning, we really do look into charts a bit more. You can kind of like see where the patterns are, see where the sort of like the breakdowns may occur. And a lot of the times, and I recharted it this morning, like just the simple trend lines, and it's following them, and it's following them to a T. And Ethereum broke her line today, and then that's when she just absolutely plummeted. But it's been a big lesson and an eye opener to me. Get away from the shit coins, as fun as they are. They take you away from what you're actually supposed to be looking at, and that's the bigger, better, more badass charts like the king and the queen, and then everything else. Because you slow down, you can see it, man. It's so painstakingly there for you.
So what's interesting, what's really interesting about, like the reference point that we make, around the SPX is that it really hasn't had a bad few days. I mean, it's had a good week. It's just been it's been up only. I mean, it really has. Look at that. It's just completely recovered from what was a whole lot of nuking, and it's just looking really good. And we saw that obviously with BTC. I mean, BTC did really well over the last 10 days, and it hasn't really like found the same momentum that the SPX has. There really is no clear correlation almost. We've been correlated so strongly with TradFi and SPX, and it almost seems like the last couple of days it's gone out the window. Obviously we need to give it some more time. I know that there's a lot more guys on the technical aspect that will say, listen, just give it more time. But right now it really does seem like we are decorrelated in the opposite direction, unfortunately.
Yeah, I tell you what, that's one thing, like, it really does get on my tits. Is people like, just give it some more time, give it some more time, give it some more time. Yeah, sometimes the more time you give it, the further it goes down. I know it can be the other way, but what's this not working? It sometimes just feels like a lot of LARP. But if you go back to the SPX real quick, what's really interesting to see, and I don't know if Bitcoin and crypto is about to front run it, but for me, just looking at that, it's like almost teetering on the edge. It wants to come down. It's on that verge of people wanting to take profits. And I mentioned this in our newsletter a little bit earlier. Like if you zoom in right into the RSI, which is an indicator I personally quite like to use a lot, so you can see if it's overbought, if it's oversold, where it's going. If you change that to the daily, please, sir. So in theory, on the daily, what you can see here is it's been following its yellow like trend line quite nicely on the RSI.
Yeah.
You see it almost wanted to come down push past it, but you can see how it's just flicking up a little bit. Now, what's going to be really interesting is to see over the duration of today, before America actually opens, where futures will be. Because I know yesterday in America it was a little bit slower, and the SPX, both the SPX and Nasdaq closed 0.2% up, which might be losing a bit of steam, which is maybe why crypto and Bitcoin is front running any kind of dip. I don't know, but we'll go and talk to a little bit later about the options expiring. But in my mind, I'd have liked to have seen, well, I guess as we all, the SPX have maybe today and then the start of next week is a bit more up. But let's we'll just have to wait and see.
So I mean, if you had to guess, in light of what it is that you're seeing on the charts at the moment, particularly, you know, from SPX and obviously the Dixie, I mean, what do you reckon? I mean, just as a wild guess, I mean, we're not going to hold you to it if you get it wrong, but we'll definitely hold you to it if you get it right. I mean, where do you think do you honestly think that we are, from the crypto perspective, front running what's coming? When was the last time that actually happened, if that's the case? So there's two questions there.
Yeah, I'm gonna say, it's a big thing. I'm gonna punt it out there and say, yeah, I think crypto has just front run it. Let's have a quick look on here. The futures are already down in the US now. If you look at the ES1 exclamation point, which is the S&P 500 E-mini futures, which usually gives a rough indication of what's going to happen. Then if we have a look at Hong Kong, they're open at the moment, so they're down 0.88%. So what I've always found is like a massive correlation is how the Asian markets open sometimes, or a lot of the time, can then dictate how the rest of the world opens. So the fact that American futures are down, Asia is down, Europe is down, I am going to say that the S&P in Americas will be down today. Bitcoin and the crypto has front run it. And yeah, I think we're going to unfortunately have a day of red, but I hope I'm wrong. I really do hope I'm wrong, because we like seeing green. We like seeing green. Yeah, so I'm gonna say, yeah, we're in for a little bit of doom and gloom on a Friday.
Okay, so this is a chart that I don't think many people know about. It's fun. It's definitely not healthy, but it essentially is a cumulative reflection of all the perps exchanges, obviously central exchanges, and this is obviously the ETH chart, and it shows your liquidations and your shorts at the bottom here. And yeah, I mean, it's just interesting to watch, obviously, the price action and the ticker on the right hand side. You can see there's a lot more red here than there's green, and these are all trades that are $100,000 plus. See, there's a 1.6 million purchase in green, but you know, the predominance of red is very obvious here. You know, it's like at this point in time anyway, so it's really fun to watch. It's on the 10-second, which is once again rather silly, but you can change the times on it. You know, you can do whatever you want here in terms of the times, and it's really cool to watch in terms of, you know, what's going on in the market. It gives you a good reflection, especially on price action. Just moving on, obviously quite a big indicator, and in line with, you know, a lot of the discussions that have been happening in the market over the last month and a half, you know, has obviously been the Ethereum merge, and, you know, the significance thereof, and how Ethereum, I mean, has definitely shown incredible strength against Bitcoin. But I think anything, you know, that has the kind of narrative that the ETH merge has would be, you know, really giving Bitcoin a run for its money. But what's really interesting about this, you know, and it's kind of like a little bit of a tease thing little bit of a troll thing that I've got going on Discord and obviously on Twitter as well, is that, you know, it's fun to make fun of how Bitcoin always leads the charge, you know, irrespective of what the narrative might be around the ETH merge. And it was just really reflected quite strongly, you know, the lob / troll around this whole thing this morning in terms of how Bitcoin just, you know, completely nukes and ETH just follows, you know, straight away, and everything does. And it's despite that though, I mean, in favor of ETH's, you know, very, very good run, you know, this ETH, the ETH BTC chart obviously speaks to that. But we have seen quite a bit of weakness over the last few days. And, you know, the question is now, with the weekend coming up, with your prediction as well, you know, are we going to hold this level here? And I have my doubts as to whether we will, because if my take on this thing is,
Hopium says yes.
Yeah, but what is rational? You know, what does the rational tell you? You know, the rational for me tells me that maybe Bitcoin has definitely lost its steam, and we might land up going back to those lows. I mean, I know there's a lot of people out there that are saying that, you know, these are the lows, you know, 18, 19 are the lows. We're not going to see them. We're not going to see anything lower than that. But there's a bit of a way to go from 22 down to 19 or 18 and a half. And it'll be interesting to see if we do that, you know, how ETH is going to be affected and how ETH is going to perform going into this merge, or whether it will just land up being a scenario of sell the news before the news event arrives.
On your Bitcoin chart, can you just flick it to the weekly and Heikenasi?
How do I do that? I've got the weekly on now.
Yep.
On terms of indicators.
No, so if you get off that, if you go to where the left of the indicators, where it's got the candles. So if you say where you had like the indicator button at the top.
Yes. This, yeah.
So if you click that, so this will give us a variety of different candles. If we go to Heikenasi or Heikenanashi, I just call it a pint of Asahi for all my Japanese beer lovers there.
Why am I not seeing it here? This one here.
Yeah. So this is a super, and if we just make it a little bit bigger, so this is like a super useful candle. I highlighted it in some of the analysis we did in the newsletter, because essentially this measures trend, and you know, within any trend you can sometimes see, you know, on let's say an uptrend or a downtrend, you can see red candles, green candles going up and down. What this is doing here is this is kind of like breaking it all down and merging it into one. So you can see how we had that massive run of red into the last 4 weeks of green. Now, what's super interesting now to see on here is if we look at this week's candle, it is heavily indecision, because the wick to the north and to the south of it are basically the same. So
yes,
so basically the market hasn't got an absolute clue what's going on here. So what's going to be really interesting with the close of business today going into tomorrow and then Sunday is what color candle that'll be, and then depending on what color it is, what is the strength going to be like? Because you can see we've had 4 clear weeks of uptrend. So is this going to be a small natural pullback? Who knows, man? But this is if you don't have this in your technical analysis, sometimes it's quite cool to look on a macro scale, so you can see the bigger overall trend. But it's a super useful tool.
Cool, thanks. I didn't know about this tool. I mean, I obviously saw it in the newsletter, and when I looked at the graph, when I looked at the charts that you put up, it's like, wow, this looks really clean. And I should have actually questioned you on that. So thanks for showing me that. It really does give you a good idea. You're 100% correct. It's a much clearer, and almost takes away the untidiness of it. You know, like, 'cause it does get quite messy, and it has been messy. If that makes any sense. So yeah, thanks for that. Okay, so just moving on from that, I mean, what are the main news items at the moment? I mean, let's not be doom and gloom. I'm sure there's some positives out there for us to look at. I think you brought up a whole lot of news items earlier on. Do you want to just go through those at the moment?
Yeah, I think one thing we should touch on is the whole because it keeps unfolding more and more. Is the whole story around Tornado Cash, mixers, and the way it's all been handled. And then I'll be super interested to find out what your opinion on the whole situation is and how like crypto mixers and privacy within crypto goes from here.
I think listen, I don't think it's an easy question to answer. I think this is I mean, there's so much around this topic. My thoughts around it is that there really needs to be accountability around, the kind of stuff that needs to be accounted for. And that is, when somebody gets hacked or, we want the space to be functional for people to be able to use it and to feel that they're safe within that space. But then how do you do that without being in a situation where privacy is obviously compromised and people's identity and safety around that is compromised? And I think that's where the real challenge comes in. I think there needs to be a compromise between the two. I don't think it can be either or. And it can't be either or because then we'll never get mass adoption, because people in general do not have the responsibility or the inclination to take self-custody to the level that it needs to be in order to be safe in terms of their privacy, in order to be safe in terms of their security when interacting with any kind of market, whether they're buying something, at the general store that's online. When they're buying something on Amazon, they want some kind of safety that they're going to spend their money, they're going to get delivery, and in the event that they don't get delivery, that there is some kind of recourse. At the moment, crypto does not afford you that I'd say it's a privilege in many ways, and that security to be able to buy something on a level of insurance and peace of mind. So how do we bridge the gap? And are the two mutually exclusive? What I mean by that is, do you have to have regulation and some kind of KYC in place in order to protect people? If you do, then it's inevitable that we would go down the regulatory path. But if it isn't, then by all means, I would welcome, completely, decentralized way of being. And that is that I take my own custody into my own hands and all that kind of stuff. So I'm definitely on the fence on this. I haven't engaged with enough of the podcasts, literature, that is looking or that are looking at these points in order to formulate an opinion around it. I'm just aware of the issues and, the challenges that are being faced in the space when it comes to, to be anonymous, to be private, to be, all those good things. And what is the price that you pay in order to have those in place?
And then what do you think about, do you think it was right that the developer of this was arrested last week? What's your opinion on that?
I think that's bullshit, because that's completely contradictory to creating, first of all, a platform in order for these discussions to occur, because the discussions need to happen. They need to happen in light of, the concerns that I've just raised. What are the concerns? What are the challenges around this thing? You don't solve those problems by going and arresting somebody who wrote a bit of code. And the argument comes in, and it's a very good argument that states that, is code not the equivalent of speech? And if it is speech, does free speech actually exist? And why are you arresting somebody who wrote a whole lot of code when on the other side of it, you've got guys who have openly participated in the downfall of protocols in the billions of dollars, and nothing's happened to them? Like direct and clear, culpability around something, yet those people aren't being arrested, yet developers who write code are. So I think there's two things here. The first thing is that you're arresting somebody for writing code. Cool. Well, it's not cool, but that's the one point. And the second point is that you're not arresting people who are participating in in something that has cost people billions of dollars. So what is the precedent that you're setting as a lawmaker? Well, the precedent is that you're not willing to actually work through the arguments and discuss what's going on here and to establish, what is fact from fiction. You're just kind of, it seems to me like a knee-jerk reaction. We've got this issue. There was a ban made by the US government on this protocol, essentially on code, because there's not one person, there isn't anyone that's in charge of this thing. This is the thing about decentralization. There's not one person who's in charge. You can't go and arrest one person. Yes, there's a whole lot of people who wrote code around this, and it's like going and arresting everybody who's running a Bitcoin miner because you've decided that you're going to ban Bitcoin. Is that what you're going to do? You're going to go and ban every single person who's running a Bitcoin miner, whether it's in a basement or whether it's in a warehouse with 100 or 1,000 or 10,000 rigs? Are you going to now go and arrest everyone? No, you're not, because that isn't what the discussion that needs to happen.
Yeah, but I think their argument is that he's facilitated money laundering, and the money laundering's been, or the platform's been heavily used by the Koreans. So I always thought this was a bit of a political, potentially a political play from America.
Yes, it is. Absolutely, it is. But then it's the same as saying, well, somebody stole my credit card details and went and shopped on Amazon and bought a whole load of flat screen televisions, and we now need to ban the internet because they did that. It's the same thing, dude. You can't do that from the perspective of, it's a tool, it's code. You can't go and blame the guy who wrote the code for something that somebody else did. It just makes no sense.
Yeah, and like in the latest news and the update of it, it's this is from Cointelegraph. It's like, wife of arrested tornado cash death forbidden to speak with him. Rally organized. So she's saying that they're now treating him as if he were a dangerous criminal, which he's just a dev and he's just a coder. But if you were to look at it from the extreme, he could be there facilitating cyber terrorism through money laundering with the Koreans, which is probably why they've taken such a stance. And I guess we don't know the full ins and outs of, who the dev was, what his history was, if there was any like actual implications, or if there was any like, side hustles or whatever. But when it comes to the actual crypto mixers, what do you think will happen now with them? Do you think they're going to have to get smarter, or do you think it's a part of the crypto industry that might just stay very taboo now?
No, I don't think. What it does is that, okay, so there's two things to this thing. What this thing does is that it really puts the idea and the necessity of privacy and all the issues around that and decentralization in the limelight, and it actually allows for, a bad thing has happened, and now the constructive discussions will happen. Because I'm generally, I'd like to look at the positive side of this thing, and I think the positive side of this thing is that now it affords the opportunity for lawmakers, for regulators, for participants, for coders, whoever, so for all participants to sit down and actually set a precedent, or to set a discussion forum with which then we can proceed to actually come up with the right regulations and the correct discussions to be had. Unfortunately, it took, an extreme situation to bring this all to light, but unfortunately, that's the way that it always works. You always have to have some kind of extreme event in order for the constructive stuff to happen. And I think the second part to it is that in terms of your question around what's going to happen, I think a lot of the stuff will fall in line with what regulation demands, and then you'll always have, the dark side of it, or what some people, or those people who are making the law will deem to be, the dark side of it, and you'll always have your tornadoes who will be completely off the grid per se, and you'll still be able to do all of that kind of stuff, because that's just the nature of humanity and the internet, and people will always do the extreme, on either side of it. So I don't think it will really change, but what will change and what is important in the space is that there will be clear regulatory guidelines around how this thing can happen, and the majority will fall in line with that. And that's, if you want to mass adopt, that's the only way that we can go about doing this. So I'm taking the middle of the road on this because I think that's the only way we can proceed in a positive way.
Yeah, no, I agree with you on that one. So moving on, let's talk games because I know you're a nerd, I'm a nerd, and we've probably gone down like a wormhole of games quite a lot. Up now in the news is Fortnite developer supports Animoca subsidiary's blockchain racing game. So I'll read the headline here. So the indie game subsidiary has just received support from Epic Games, which is huge.
Yes.
One of their upcoming blockchain powered P2E games. So play to earn racing games, Talk Drift 2. What are your thoughts on the big AAA game studios and developers now starting to finally get involved?
Well, we obviously had Microsoft that said no to NFTs, which I think was, once again, Microsoft, hampering their progress in the space. And then you've obviously got Epic, they're Epic. I mean, what have they ever not done anything like successfully? I mean, they've just everything they touch, just they get it right, And if there's going to be anyone who's going to be an indicator to the space, it's going to be Epic and it's going to be Blizzard, and those guys are the ones who are leading the charge. I mean, have Blizzard ever done anything wrong? Please remind me. Or no, they haven't. Have Epic done anything wrong? No. I mean, obviously, we're not talking about Blizzard here, but I think the precedent has been set with what Epic are doing right now, and you can either pay attention and try and outdo them in terms of what it is that they're doing in the space, or you can just follow because they obviously know what it is that they're doing, and if you aren't paying attention to that, then guess what, sir? You're going to get left behind. And it's just buying. You and I are both on the same page around how, gaming has always been the innovator. It's always been the thing that has pushed the envelope, since the beginning, since, Voodoo graphics cards. Yes, I am old enough to remember those because I had one of those. I had a Voodoo 1 and Voodoo 2 graphics card, and the software followed. The hardware was the one that actually, their hardware, gaming hardware was the thing that actually pushed software development in the 3D animation space, animation space. Along came NVIDIA after that. And look at where we are now. The Unreal Engine is huge, and it's once again we're going to see gaming innovation, I believe, push mass adoption into the crypto space. How that looks like, I think we still I think we even before early. I think it's kind of like really at its cellular level. It's not even embryonic yet in terms of how monetary value can be derived out of gaming. I think we don't have a clue, but if you look at where the Unreal Engine is in terms of development around, kind of metaverse concept and 3D animation, I think it will give us a really good idea as to where the graphics and the kind of like the sensory immersive aspect of gaming is. And then what follows from that will be, how do we monetize this thing, around whether it's streamers getting paid money, whether it's, the virtual reality side of gaming. What was that amazing movie that was made recently off a book, Player? It was really cool, where you basically put the goggles in and you experience kind of like a metaverse type of reality. And I think that's where we're going, and the question is, how do we derive monetary value from that? Is it going to be through ownership of assets within the game? Is it going to be, the Vitalik World of Warcraft sword scenario, like in a decentralized space? Can you create your own items that accrue value in the NFT context? I don't know yet, but the foundation is being set, and obviously your gaming studios like Epic are definitely setting that up they're setting the runway and the precedent for that kind of stuff to happen.
Yeah, I completely agree. Have you got that article up? If you bring it up, 'cause there's a few quite cool key points in it.
Yeah,
And the
let me
man
bring
with
it
the
up.
big blower is he's outside my front window again blowing. So if you hear any kind of blowing on camera today, I do apologize.
I'm just bringing this article up. It's on the screen at the top. That's why I'm looking up, obviously. So please excuse my rudeness. And for some reason, it's not actually loading. The internet is not complying. Yeah, it's weird. But Cointelegraph is fairly slow. Let me just share.
But I do definitely agree. We are in the pre-embryonic stages of crypto gaming. So stage one was the scams. Stage two is now we're actually building, which is what I think these guys are doing. This is why we're starting to see a slightly greater adoption. And the one thing that I've noticed from a lot of games companies now, or the ones that are building, is they've remembered what games are supposed to be, and that's supposed to be fun. So fun comes first, and then everything else is second. If we've seen like in some of the previous games, like if you got to spend like $500 to start playing a game, you're probably not going to want to play it. But as the game goes on, you're probably going to be more happy to spend $500 on something shit for it. I read an article like a year or two ago when it comes to things like Clash of Clans and Boom Beach. People would power level their little mobile device, and it would cost about 10 to 15,000 US dollars to power it up from start to finish, which is huge. So if we can break down the barrier at the start, I think that'd be great. But this guy here, he does point it out quite well. I've never said, "Hey, what are you doing tonight? Let's play the new crypto game." But I am hoping that over the next year or two, that is something that we see more of. Not say, "Hey, let's go play a crypto game." It's like, "Hey, let's go play XYZ game. Let's go play XYZ." And I think part of it's going to will be NFTs, have an NFT feature. And then what will be super cool is if these NFTs are evolutionary, so they kind of grow over time as you level up. And then I just think we're in a super exciting time because we're at that part that's not super beginning, it's just after that. So I think it's going to be huge. But they've just got to get it right. I think him and Animoca will do some good things for it, especially if they keep getting people like Epic Games online, and like if Ubisoft go further into it as well.
I think one of the big things about the whole gaming thing that really got me down, and obviously Vitalik was bang on, because he realized that I don't own this. I've played this game. I've spent a whole lot of money in it in terms of my subscriptions, my time, all these things. But ultimately, I don't own this. And this is the thing that's stated in this tweet, is that I reiterated this just a day ago, that most gamers don't realize that all the items they play with and have earned, they don't actually belong. They don't actually belong to the players. And I think that is probably one of the biggest issues around this, is that there needs to be ownership. And as soon as ownership is derived, then like it's the whole thing around like people who spend money on buying an account, whether it's a World of Warcraft account or whether it's items or gold or whatever the case is. And it's like, why are you spending money in a game? But what people don't realize is that the money that they're spending in the game is in fact time. They're actually giving one form of time, which is money, whether it's Bitcoin, whether it's fiat currency, whether it's Ethereum, and they're buying something else. Even though game developers do not allow the sale of accounts, there still is a market for them, because ultimately time has value. And that's what you're paying for. You're not paying for anything else. If you think that you're paying for a magical sword or an account that is leveled up, you're not actually paying for that. You're paying for the time. And then how do you derive time within the gaming aspect or in anything really? Because when you're working and you're doing work, you are essentially billing for your time. Doctors bill for time, lawyers bill for time. It's no different. And all you're doing is that you are translating the time that you've spent into monetary value. And that's what's going on here. And that's how these games are going to carve their niche into society, whether it's through NFTs, whether it's through some form of token, whether it's some form of exchange. Ultimately, what you're doing is you're exchanging time, and it goes from that point onwards. And I think that's where the starting point is going to be, and it's going to be really interesting, where it lands up. I mean, imagine a Diablo-style version of the game, which allows you to, Diablo 5 for argument's sake. You got probably one of the most iconic gaming brands on the planet, and stories, and all these wonderful things that Diablo brings to the table, and then you derive some kind of monetary value that goes back to the players. Imagine that as a business model. That could be huge. That could surpass any form of revenue that any game or any production or anything on that level has ever derived before, because now you have a vested interest from its players that then effectively become shareholders in the game. I mean, the mind just boggles in terms of what the potential is around that.
Right. And I feel like it's like maybe one last article. I think we should address the merge. And has the rumor just been sold, or do you think we're going to see another pump running into it? What do you think? What's your analysis on this?
So are we doing are we kind of just going straight out of the news into a predictory thing? I mean, a prediction thing. Is that what you're doing? Are you putting me on the spot here?
Mate, hey, you put me on the spot at the start. Is the SPX? Yes. Now, but
okay,
what do you think about the situation now? Because
I think the weekly candle, or the candle we were looking at just now, is a very good indication as to what the uncertainty is. So that weekly candle that we were looking at, the spinning top, I honestly don't know. I really, really don't know where we are at the moment. I think from a technical analysis perspective, obviously, I'm a big follower of what guys like Don Alt and his partner in crime have come up with Cred, and they've come up with some really interesting narratives around we're in a range, the range is set, and we're just going to fluctuate between the range. And essentially that candle is an indicator of where we are at. It's like we are sitting in the middle of this range at the moment. It looks like we are. And it's just going to continue doing this. And that's what bear markets do. We get this. It comes down to that whole thing that we were chatting about last week, I think it was, where we try and convince ourselves that, it could be different this time, and we're going to break this range, and we're going to keep on going up. But what's happening right now is that we're once again being reminded that we're in a range, and we're about to possibly go back down towards the lows. And then once we hit the lows again, we're going to end up going back up to the highs again. And to answer your question around ETH, I think ETH will continue to show will be relatively stronger than the rest of the market because of this merge that's coming up. But at the end of the day, it is part and parcel going to follow what Bitcoin does. And, if it wasn't going to, if it was going to hit, say, 1,300, it won't hit the 1,300 because of the merge, and it will probably maintain the, your level that you've been talking about for a while now is at 1,590 level. So it won't go below that in terms of its low on that because of the merge. But once the merge comes, I believe that we'll then revisit those lows again, or close to the lows, which were just above 1,000 or just below 1,000, if I remember correctly. Is that right?
Yeah. And what's interesting? Okay, sorry.
Yeah. So I think it's a two-way street here. I think that ETH is ultimately very much dependent on what Bitcoin does, but it won't go as low as it potentially would have without the merge, and the merge is kind of keeping it at a higher level, if that makes sense. Am I making sense here?
I mean, yeah, 100%. Because
if
you look at what Delphi put out as well, like the amount of actual Ethereum getting staked has just been going up. So even as the price has been going down, more of it's been being locked away. And even right now, we're at our highest level ever, which is closing in on about the 14 million pieces of Ethereum staked, which is very, very interesting to see. So I don't know if these guys are just front running it or what. And then we had that, what was it, that whale wallet earlier in the week or towards the end of last week.
150,000, yeah.
That's crazy, because you imagine your bag of Ethereum being 150,000, then he splits it up. I think he is one of these early ICO whales who obviously knows stuff. And I think if he's going to go and run a lot of validators, that would make sense, because he can just make absolute bankroll off that. He'll make more money validating a load of like nodes or whatever, than he would just like selling all his ETH over the long term. Anyway.
So I think Dan, you're 100% correct, and it's in line with what Umami are doing. So that interview that we did with Lex from the CEO of Umami, he's their next project. So at the moment, what they're doing is they're obviously deriving the fees off their vaults from GMX. So GMX is their main source of revenue, and they're now looking at nodes and Ethereum nodes and investing in that, and obviously staking and deriving fees of that as their next project. So, you talk about front running, just look at what the guys are looking at in terms of where are they going to get the real yield narrative, not the pessimistic kind of like scammy real yield. This is real yield. You're going to need validators. You're going to need all of that stuff going on. We're going into proof of stake right now. The proof of work's going out the window. This is the next wave of earning those fees. And someone actually posted on Twitter this week around. I've seen a lot of FUD around this merge. There's going to be chaos. There's going to be a whole lot of these unknown factors. How much of this ETH is going to get unstaked, and how much of it is going to get sold? Well, if the next narrative is going to be deriving fees and real yield around setting up this validation and the nodes around that, then why sell? Like you said, these guys are going to make more money doing this than selling for the long term, because we know that this network ain't going anywhere. It is the business. It is the business of where everything is going, and there's a reason why it's still around and why there's $100 billion staked on it. And it's not going anywhere. So it makes absolute sense that there is a strong argument to suggest that it's now completely deflationary. Why would it crash? Why would it go below $2,000? There's so much to support that argument as well. But unfortunately, it takes markets a long time to realize this. And yes, I know it's probably priced in. I know, guys, you're saying that over and over again. But then why isn't it sitting at $3,000 in light of what it is that I've just said? It's just so difficult to make a call. So my call is that ETH will continue to ride the coattails of Bitcoin. Whether that will change, I don't think it will change in the short to medium term, but maybe it will in the long term. I hope it does, because I think ETH has got a lot more to offer at the moment than Bitcoin does in terms of its ability to create mass adoption, and more importantly for institutional investment, which obviously is needed in order to get this mass adoption.
I will second that, but it is. Sorry, I had to, because like when we started talking about the Ethereum chart right at the start of the show we were watching, it got me really excited, and I've just flicked it back on it. It's not the prettiest thing to see in the world, but
yeah,
it's super. I'm gonna do a little TA afterwards on this, but no, like, yeah. So yeah. I just got way overstimulated then from watching the chart. I'm really sorry.
I actually warned you around this thing. I told you, be careful. You didn't want to listen to me.
Yeah, this is my own charts, but that's going to be way too stimulating. So I'm the kind of person that like I definitely don't have ADD or ADHD or anything, but I can get overstimulated really quick if there's too many things going on. I went to so for my nan's 80th birthday about like 8 or 9 years ago. She took the whole family to Las Vegas, and oh my days, that was the most overstimulating place for a young 20-something-year-old. Yeah, it's just crazy. It's good fun. Just good fun. Oh, Santos. Oh, well, we should have bought Santos. That's what that's saying.
We should have, absolutely. Anyways, right. Thank you, sir, for your time.
No problem. One quick update. We are having a massive reshuffle of the newsletter. We'll release more details in the Discord first, but you won't get one today on Friday. You won't get one on Sunday because we're having a complete system change, revamp, rebrand, kind of a redesign. So then we can give everybody out there a lot more hidden alpha and a lot bigger, better stories. It is footy season, boys.
It's fan token season, my friend.
God damn it.
So this is another really cool app for those of you who are wondering what this is. Crypto Watch. I was fortunate to.
Doge season ended?
Doge season has ended. It didn't last very long, did it? I was fortunate to alpha test this and then beta test the mobile app and obviously the web app. These guys are awesome. Like Crypto Watch, if you don't use it, get it. Great guys, great product. Yeah, I mean, we're not being paid to show this. It's just from our personal experience. I mean, these guys are amazing. Yeah, and you can obviously, from this dashboard, you can also go into, market cap 24-hour changes. So this kind of like brings coin market cap in a way better format. You can then click on it and get the chart. It really is. It's a functional website. Well, it should work. Yeah, and it just shows everything. I mean, it's just such a cool website. This.
Oh, nice.
And then obviously you can also change the way that it looks as well. Like you can go, like I've got Wall Street themes, but there's so many different themes, whatever you want, standard. Yeah, it's just great, great platform, these guys. And then you can also customize, everything from the lines to colors. You can do everything. It's just incredible, this website.
God damn it.
Anyways, cool guys. Dan, thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Not particularly excited about what the market's doing at the moment. But it is what it is. We're in this range. It's a bear market, and we're just going to carry on building. Please, guys, like and subscribe. We need to stay out of our mother's basement. So the more people that like and subscribe,
help keep me out of the basement.
That helps keep Dan and myself out the basement. But in all seriousness, we do appreciate it. The algos like it. And it gives us the opportunity to bring more of this content to you guys. Subscribe to our newsletter as well. It's free. The only thing is that we put one ad in there for our sponsors so that we can obviously do what it is that we do and we don't spam that on you. And there's always a lot of alpha in there. We've made some good calls over the last 3 or 4 weeks since we started the newsletter. And if guys were following those calls, they would have made themselves some good money. Obviously, everything that we discuss here is not financial advice. It's for entertainment purposes only. It's for our entertainment and for yours. We obviously have a lot of fun most of the time, unless Bitcoin is nuking. And yeah, hope you guys have a good weekend. And yeah, take it easy out there.
Peace.